This is Fritz Frivolous with continuous live coverage of the corner of Curious Lane and Just Because Boulevard, the epicenter of the alien invasion. And this just in, King Kong is fighting the Mobile Suit Gundam. And of course, all of this is happening amidst World War IV, making it pure pandemonium. If only Captain Planet were still alive to save us all. Dude, could you imagine? Take a look at a globe. Do you see somewhat of a pattern? Some say the continents look as if they can fit together, almost like a puzzle. Scientists theorize that millions of years ago, the Earth looked vastly different than what we see today. The theory is there was one giant landmass before the tectonic plates started drifting apart, creating 7 separate continents. It was one supercontinent scientists have named Pangea. However, what if Pangea never separated? What if the tectonic plates never drifted apart? How would this affect life on Earth? 2 of the world's greatest geological scientists, Will and Tom, study this topic to discern if there is an answer before going their separate ways. Welcome back, everybody. This is Tom Case.
This is Will Stark.
Will, this question I'm going to have to give credit to my wife. She actually was thinking about this the other day. We were driving, I forget where we were driving to, but she started talking about this, and I told her, I said, oh, you know what? There's actually scientists who have kind of touched on this subject.
Oh, okay.
And the question is, what if Pangea never separated?
Interesting. That's a good question. I like this.
Yeah.
What if Pangea never separated? Do you have parameters?
Here are the parameters.
Oh, gosh. Here we go.
The supercontinent known as Pangea never separated, creating the separate 7 continents we know today.
Say that 7 times fast.
I know, right? So just in case if we do have listeners who may not be familiar with what Pangea is, so...
What, 200 million years ago, you said?
I think it's, probably like 300 million years ago or so. I actually have it in one of my Fritz facts here, but... We have 7 continents that we know of today, but if you kind of look at them, they kind of seem to fit in like a puzzle piece type way. Like if you kind of, like put them together, they sort of look like they can fit, right?
Yeah. Essentially, the tectonic plates have just moved them apart from each other.
Exactly.
They were one mass at one point a long time ago.
Yeah. And Pangea was what scientists believe, is that before they separated into the 7 continents that we have today, it was one giant supercontinent, and they named it Pangea.
They say in about 150 million years it'll kind of come back together. Not in the same
form, way, but
the continents will kind of move back together for a time to,
Being on a globe, I mean, it's going to happen sooner or later. You know what I mean? They have to bump into each other.
Eventuality, I suppose.
Yeah. You know what? That actually makes me think. Let me go through the Fritz facts just so that people kind of will understand exactly what we're talking about.
Cool. Fritz facts at the beginning. This is new.
I know,
I'm
right?
not used to this.
Don't get used to it. No, just playing. The first Fritz fact: Pangea is a supercontinent that existed during the late Paleozoic and early Mesozoic eras. It assembled from earlier continental units approximately 335 million years ago and began to break apart about 175 million years ago. Number 2, the size of Pangea was roughly 148.43 million square kilometers, which is around 57.83 million square miles.
Okay.
Nowadays, I know, right? Now, the United States, we have to have it a little differently. Nowadays, the area of all the continents of the planet is 148.33 million square kilometers.
Is that roughly the same? I don't remember the number you said.
Roughly the same.
Okay.
Yeah, the other one was... Actually, the other one was 148.43. Now it's 148.33.
So a little bit less.
A little bit less. A little bit less.
We lost something there. Okay.
Yeah. And then number 3, scientists believe that Pangea broke apart for the same reasons that the plates are moving today. The movement is caused by the convection currents that roll over in the upper zone of the mantle. This movement in the mantle causes the plates to move slowly across the surface of the Earth. So the objective of this question is going to see how life and civilizations would differ from today.
Okay. Were there any other parameters you had?
No.
Okay. Okay. Pangea never moved. I think off the bat, like humanity doesn't come to be.
Really?
Oh, definitely. Well, maybe not definitely, but all 99.999%. Because I also don't think the dinosaurs get wiped out in this universe. Because I think and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the asteroid that hits on land. And if Pangea is condensed down, we're talking about a mega ocean, the likes of which we couldn't even imagine. I think the asteroid definitely, much higher chance of hitting the ocean. And if it hits the ocean, we're still looking at a mass extinction event. But you have to remember when the asteroid hit that wiped out the dinosaurs, I think something like 99.5% of all life on Earth got wiped out. Like everything bigger than a fucking chicken went.
Yeah.
I don't think that happens. I think we're looking at more like 80%. I think some dinosaurs make it. I just think there's a much higher chance. And if the dinosaurs don't die out, I think it makes it much harder for mammals to start trying to take over the world. Yeah. So, and that's only one part of it. Like, let's say somehow primates really, really do manage to flourish and make it somehow. And some of them start getting smart. You got massive inclement weather to talk about here. We're talking about monsoons and hurricanes so much bigger than anything we get today because there's nothing to stop them when it starts. Let's say Pangea is on one side of the world, of a hurricane starts on the other. It's just gonna keep going until something slows it down. And then it's gonna hit Pangea and it's gonna devastate. And then it'll eventually stop. Yeah. We got planets in the solar system that have hurricanes that have been going for millions of years because nothing's there to stop them.
Yeah, like on Jupiter, isn't it?
Yeah, like Jupiter. There's another one on Neptune.
I think there's one. Is there one on Saturn?
There could be. Essentially, the roiling gases are just one big hurricane anyways. But so I'm thinking we're getting massive, massive inclement weather. I think at the center of this big landmass, we're going to get mega deserts where at the very center, there's just no life. But, the big rings of desolation around that as well. Eventually, I think we're going to get like a mega rainforest at the center, right? Because the equator, and I think the weather's going to roll through. But I think with the mountains that are going to form on this mega continent, I think we're getting huge swaths of desert. I think the only super habitable areas on Pangea are going to mostly be like the first, X 100 miles of the coast inland.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
But like you did mention mountains, which I kind of find interesting because like wouldn't that still suggest that they're moving, something's moving underneath towards it, right? Wouldn't that be kind of like
Pangea
how mountains
had mountains?
Yeah. Well, yeah. To begin with, but I'm just saying like now any other kind of land change probably wouldn't happen if nothing's moving at that point.
If we want to go that far, that's true. But then that opens up a can of worms because like there have been theories saying that life may only be possible on Earth because of a lot of the tectonic changes happening. And so, like, I don't know how true that is. And I certainly haven't read up on any of that stuff recently, but like no life on Earth, end discussion.
I know, right? Okay, everybody, bye. Have a good one.
I think inclement weather, mega deserts, super rainforest, if humans somehow have shown up on this planet, we got to deal with dinosaurs and who knows what other mega predators. God knows what's out in the ocean. Like, think about how big things get now.
Exactly. It would be gigantic.
And huge. Think about, like, all the prehistoric aquatic animals, like the shark, the megalodon, or the Leoplurodon, or the plesiosaur. Like, maybe a lot of those things don't get wiped out because, they live in the water and there's a goddamn lot of it. And who knows how much bigger they get? Who knows how big whales get? Who knows how big cephalopods can get? Like, it's going to be a big, bad world out there in the ocean and people are going to have to deal with it because, like, sailing becomes just such a huge amount of the travel that human civilization, if there is one, has to do to get anywhere, like far away.
Yeah, and then you gotta figure, even if they did that. With because the rest of the Earth is ocean. There's no other landmass.
Yeah, there's nothing out there.
So after a while, they really could. They're really going to just sail around.
No one would ever make it.
No one would.
No one would ever make it.
It would be. You would think after a while they would be like, okay, we're not going to go back out there. There's nothing there. Like, why would we go back out there? Unless it was for like,
I wouldn't even be surprised if
food purposes or fishing or something like that.
I wouldn't be surprised if people super think the world's flat. Like, because I think, let's say humanity exists in this world. I think by now we're lucky if we're at the early Iron Age.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I just think survival is just going to be so brutal. Like, progress is going to be just mega slowed down.
I do want to explore the aspect of let's say humans did survive, right?
Yeah.
And they still started to become the dominant species on the planet. Let's say they figure out a way to, protect themselves or kill off the dinosaurs maybe or whatever.
Right.
I would always think, what would that do with like certain cultural or racial divides? Because now, I mean, technically they would probably still be there. You know what I mean? Because you'll have a group of people on this part of the Pangea and then you have
right.
someone on the far other side of Pangea. But I kind of would think, I don't know, I would theorize that there may not be as much of that as like there was in our own history, only because of the fact that we weren't separated by oceans. You know what I mean? Like there may be more of an open.
I think you greatly
trade.
Underestimate the history of the amount of landlocked tribes killing each other.
Oh no, I see. Yeah. No, I'm not denying that would not happen.
Yeah.
I just feel like since there isn't other, you know what I mean? Since we would all already be there, I don't know if it would happen as much.
So, okay. I think communication becomes really difficult across long distances in this world compared to like the world that we ended up in ancient times, because I think you end up with two impassable boundaries for humans. Like, let's say you are a small village on the coast of Pangea. We'll say the eastern coast. On one side of you have an endless ocean, actually pretty much endless one. There's no crossing it. And there's nothing out there except for death. And then on the other side, you have a certain amount of habitable land before it becomes like a massive mountain on the other side of which is an endless wasteland of desert, which is almost certainly exactly how it's going to be. So you're on this sliver of land. It's probably a wide sliver, but it's still a sliver. And the only ways to go are north and south along the coast, which there's more people.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I didn't take that into account. Where you're saying because most of Pangea would be uninhabitable. Yeah. So there would only be those two.
Yeah. Like the habitable zone of Pangea is going to be like, I'm just going to throw a random number out there. We'll say like a 200 to 300 mile wide ring around the edge, right? And so like if things going on the West Coast and things going on the East Coast are completely and utterly separate from each other. And I think that mega rainforest, which is almost definitely going to run through the equatorial center of it, probably is a pretty hefty divide between North and South. I think we're going to end up with 4 main quadrants of society. Which don't start cross-pollinating until seafaring becomes much better. Yeah, and even then, it's going to be limited. And you know what I mean? Because like people in the northeastern quadrant and people in the southwestern quadrant are so far from each other that at best they might have only barely even heard of each other, let alone have ever interacted until much later on in our development.
Yeah, see, that's interesting because I wonder if other people do this too, because like the whole time I'm thinking of just this big giant landmass where like everyone could live anywhere. You know what I mean? Not thinking of the geography of it across the earth. Compared to like now. Just like we have parts of Earth that are almost pretty much uninhabitable. Yeah. You know what I mean? But like back then, since everything would be that large, you would have large areas that nobody could live in. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Or it'd be just extremely difficult. Think about the Sahara Desert. Think about how like in our actual history, like a lot of the African tribes south of the Saharan were very much out of contact for a long time with Africa north of it or Europe or any of that stuff. Except for on the East Coast, not so much. Like that had a lot more trade going on. Between the Middle East and India and stuff like that. But just big isolation because that giant fucking Sahara Desert, no one could goddamn cross. And like people weren't really sailing until, later past the Iron Age.
And they pretty much would just be sailing around in a circle. Yeah. I mean, like, or around whatever the shape of Pangea.
And you also got to take into account how fucking big Pangea is because like forever people were desperately trying to figure out a way to get to China from Europe by sea that wasn't around the Horn of Africa because it took for fucking ever. Yeah. And if that took forever, like sailing around Pangea would take quadruple the time.
Yeah, that would be.
Like, I really think that, like, it just slows down progress. It really does. Until eventually we get over the hurdle, especially, like, if we can get to the point where flight is possible, that opens up everything.
Oh, that's
now
true.
we're talking, like, crazy communication. Like, I don't even know what that looks like. I wouldn't, but if
I was gonna say, let's explore that.
Yeah, okay, let's explore that.
Like,
I think if we get there, I think whoever's there probably has a good chance of taking over the world. Because it's all one continent,
the first
baby.
Civilization to get
one final empire. Let's go. Like, this is it, right? Like, one empire, one land. Like, I think that's what happens if we get that far.
And I guess that would be a little easier to do if you had that technology and you were the only one. Yeah. Then you just have to rule over this one whole continent because it's all together.
Yeah,
you know
true.
What I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Here's a thought. This is completely in a different direction. I was thinking about dinosaurs and how, like, different prehistoric animals might get integrated into domestication. And I just had the wild idea of, like, fucking barbarians riding pterodactyls. I was just like, it would never happen. But God, could you imagine? That'd be fucking badass.
Everything that you would see that, like, from the 80s and 90s as a kid that you would want to happen, which is not true. Like, that's what you would hope, right?
I mean, if we tame pterodactyls, we get flight early.
You know what? Well, you know what? You actually bring up something I was just thinking about.
Yeah.
You know, certain animals and species that we have today, you know, are here because of the separation, right?
Yeah.
Because certain animals who may have started on, let's say, Pangea, but then everything started, you know, after
so
millions of years.
biodiversity.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, well, if it didn't separate, you know, think about, like, the different, like, you know, crossbreeding between certain animals that never had the chance to do that, or even certain animals that
we might get a lack of, like, the specialized animals. So, like, when we talk about, like, the separation, like Madagascar and Australia are really good examples of, like, some wild stuff. But a lot of those animals are so wild because they're highly, highly specialized for their environment. They can't really live anywhere else, and that does have to do with the separation. I don't know if we lose biodiversity so much as maybe it becomes different because, again, in my little Pangea that I've made in my head, things are pretty damn isolated. Like, the stuff in the southwestern corner and the stuff in the northeastern corner are never meeting each other probably unless it can fly. That's the only way and so for all intents and purposes, they might as well be on different continents.
I was also thinking too, you know how, like, certain species they don't want to introduce into certain areas, right? Because of the fact that their natural predator may not.
Oh yeah, invasive species, yeah. Which, you know, the dingo, that's a great example. The dingo is an invasive species.
But in a world like Pangea, I mean, they're always going to be there. They're not separated.
There's only one land.
Exactly. So you know, I don't think anything would ever really get out of hand, except for what you brought up with the fact that, you know, flying. You know what I mean? Would birds still need to travel? You know how, like, most birds now,
probably.
You know,
I would think
to
so
travel from
because,
North Pole to South Pole, or like South Equator, North.
There's going to be a portion of Pangea that's really far south or north, probably, unless it's somehow, like, perfectly placed center, and, like, instead of, like, it being tall enough to reach the northern and southern hemisphere, if it's more, like, wide. What was that? Longitude? Is longitude or latitude? I don't remember which one's which.
Latitude.
But, like, wide-wise is what I'll say.
Yeah, the width.
That's the technical term I'll use. That would be interesting because then, there are no poles, right? And, like, birds don't need to travel because everything's equatorial.
That's what I would think. I would think that they would make, like, this weird, elliptical ring.
I was picturing it as being like Westeros, like really tall. Like, Westeros is the continent from Game of Thrones. Yeah. Are you familiar with how it's shaped?
Yeah.
It's very, very tall. I was thinking of more like that. Here's another thing.
Yeah, I never actually thought of what it would actually
I think civilizations that are placed along a large gulf or peninsula, but a gulf more or even inland sea has a major advantage. Just like in our real life, all the nations around the Mediterranean Sea had a major advantage in being able to cross-pollinate, like, with each other, sail to each other. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so I think, like, let's say you get, like, a Gulf of Mexico or some sort of, like,
where the water.
Exactly. You're going to get all this coastline here of people that are actually closer to each other because they can just sail directly to each other across this gulf. I think that's going to be the beginning of, like, a nation state that could spread.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. And they probably would. See, I think, like what you were saying earlier with the first civilization that would reach that technology of flight, right? I think that civilization would probably be the one that you just described. It would probably be where they would have more people,
they would have
more
edge.
ideas, they would have the edge, you know what I mean?
Exactly. So that's what I think there. Here's another interesting thought is like, regardless of whether Pangea is the only continent or not, and in this scenario we're saying it is, there's got to be at least a few dozen random teeny itty bitty little Hawaiis out there floating around. Oh yeah,
there has to be.
And like, can you imagine, let's say somehow human life got on that, like the true isolation. And like, we're talking stuff like, we would be talking like isolated islands that like, there's no possibility of them coming in contact with other people until somehow the mainland ones can invent flight.
So it would literally...
And then actually find them.
It would literally be the true version of if you were stuck on a deserted island. Yeah. Like, that would be the deserted island.
Small tribes on these islands that probably, if you're lucky, there's a tiny little archipelago out there. But if it's really a lone island, man, that's got to be a crazy existence. That would be... If that's your life, that's all you know, so that's what you know. But, like, that's just so crazy to me.
That's the nightmare version of Gilligan's Island right there.
I guess so. You know what I mean? It could be. Yeah, so... I don't know if I have anything to add to that. You got anything else?
No, but you know what? It was very interesting because like me and my wife were trying to talk this out. You know what I mean? And it was funny because like we probably only talked about it maybe for about 10 minutes, and after that said, "Oh, babe, wait, no, stop." I was like, we're gonna, I gotta save this because we're gonna do it on the podcast because I really liked it.
Well, thank you for the question.
But dude, could you imagine?
Breaking news, a new study suggests leaving an iTunes review is very important for newly created podcasts. So to nurture your new favorite podcast, make sure to leave an iTunes review. This has been Fritz Frivolous, reminding you to like, comment, and subscribe. Will and Tom, back to you.
And now up to bat for the New York Yankees. Number 3, the Sultan of SWAT, the King of Crash, the Colossus of Clout, the Great Bambino, Babe Ruth. Here's the windup, the pitch. It's a home run!
And we're back.
Indeed.
So, Will, in case you didn't notice, baseball season is at hand.
It is. What are we? We're almost halfway through. Nah, not really. We're about a third through, though.
I don't know if any of the listeners know this about you, but Will loves baseball.
I do. I love baseball a lot. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I know I'm learning quite a bit. I think I've moved into my immediate phase of knowledge.
Yeah, I on the other hand... Intermediate?
Yeah, not immediate.
I never really got into baseball. I didn't mind... I have been to a few live baseball games, and I love watching it live. Like, being there at the stadium, I think for almost any sport is definitely an experience. Yeah, better than watching it on TV. However, lately, because Will's kind of been teaching me, I've been, like, asking him question after question about baseball. And he's kind of been teaching me a lot of stuff. So now it's... watching it on television is a little more entertaining for me.
Yeah, I would say baseball is one of those sports where on the surface it looks not very entertaining because you don't know what you're looking for. The more you learn about it, especially the more you learn about pitching and hitting just in general, the more fascinating it becomes. Baseball is more of a chess turn-by-turn game. And like when you see the little things going on in every single at-bat, like all the little intricacies and social cues and the signs and the struggle, like it's fascinating. The drama of baseball is unreal. I love it.
Yeah, I think what turned me off on it, watching it on television at least, was I was more used to like the faster paced sports, like like football, boxing, MMA, stuff like that is what I like to watch because there's almost constantly some kind of action.
Now, when you say football, you mean American football.
Oh yeah, American football.
I mean, what I find fascinating about American football is people like to say how action-packed it is. I just find the whole stop and go and stop and go and stop and go mind-boggling. Like I hate it. And like baseball for me, like it may appear slow, even though it's not. It never stops. Well, that's not true. It does stop here and there, but there's always something to watch. And with football, American football, I just feel like between play sucks.
Man, see, I think that, I don't know. I don't know how many sports fans we have out there listening to us, but I kind of feel like
they're going to heavily disagree.
Probably.
Only on the fact that because baseball, that's where I thought. But see, you know baseball a lot more than I do, and that's why when you say like there isn't no stop and go. See, to me, action only happens when the ball is hit by the bat.
That's insanity.
I know, right? Because I know you pick up on all the nuances and
there's so much going on.
And the signs and stuff while before the ball is pitched even, right? To me, that part is lost.
How much am I telling you about what's happening while it's happening before the pitch is even thrown?
Exactly.
And even then, I'm seeing stuff that's happening that my mouth can't move fast enough to express to you.
Yeah.
See,
but that stuff's lost on me. I think that's why if there's any sports fans out there who actually don't like baseball, they think it is slow. I think that's where that
that's what I mean. On the surface, it
Yeah.
appears slow. The more you learn, and the more layered it becomes. Anyways, what's your question?
So the question is, what if Babe Ruth played baseball today?
Okay, cool.
And the parameters are Babe Ruth time travels to our time today in his prime.
In his prime.
And he is allowed to try out and or play for the MLB.
I gotta pull this up. When was his 1923? So 1923 is when he won his MVP, but I would argue 1920 might have been his best year. Either way, we'll go with 1923.
Okay, 1923. MVP. So Babe Ruth of 1923 time travels into our time today.
Okay.
And he's allowed to try out and or play for the MLB.
Okay.
So the objective of this is going to be compared to players of today, could Babe Ruth pass tryouts and do well on a Major League Baseball team? And would he be as famous as he is if he started baseball today instead of when he did? Right?
Okay.
So let me go over some Fritz facts because I also feel like just in case people aren't familiar with Babe Ruth because I wasn't.
Well, I was about to ask you what you know about Babe Ruth.
Yeah, This is what I know about Babe Ruth summed up in
By the way,
Fritz
I'm
facts.
not a Babe Ruth expert, like not even close, but I know more than I probably
You know more than me.
I know baseball.
Yeah, I know you know more than me.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the one thing though, even without researching Babe Ruth at all, is that he has a candy bar named after him. No,
I didn't expect that.
I know. No, is that the famous, story of him pointing out into the stands before he's calling his shot.
Okay.
And this Fritz fact actually came from you, and you told me that may not be true.
Yes, it may not be true. It's actually a big mystery.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I can elaborate.
Yeah.
So one fun thing about that whole college shot is one of the reasons it was so hype at the moment, it wasn't just because it's fucking awesome by itself, but there was a large amount of animosity between Ruth and they were playing the Cubs. This was in the World Series that this happened, by the way. The college shot is in game 1 or 2. I don't know where to begin this story. We'll just say, Cubs, Ruth, bad blood. The reason there was bad blood was because the Cubs the previous year had won the World Series. And back then, when you won the World Series, the reason it was a big deal was because the team got like a big cash prize, and they would divide it evenly amongst the players who played on the team.
Oh, okay.
But like there were certain factors that came into play. Excuse me. Like for instance, if you were a trade piece that came over halfway through the year, you would only get like a half share.
Oh yeah.
There was one particular player, I don't remember his name. I think he was shortstop. He got traded to the Cubs really late in the season, but he was integral to them getting to the World Series and winning. And so because he was integral, he probably got more than like how much he would have because he was only there for like 30 games or whatever. But he still only got a half share. And the thing about this guy was God, I wish I remembered his name. He was on the Yankees before. He had a career with the Yankees. He was part of Murderer's Row. You know what Murderer's Row is?
You know what? I think I heard that term, but I'm not.
Murderer's Row was like the Yankees of their prime while they were with Ruth on the squad. When they won all their World Series, Lou Gehrig was on that team. Other famous people too, off the top of my head. Again, I'm not an expert, but this kid, or he wasn't a kid at this point anymore, but he was part of Murderer's Row. Not that he was one of the murderers, just that he happened to be on the team. Anyways,
wait, Murderer's Row meaning
the squad of dudes on the Yankees, like when they came up to bat, they were called Murderer's Row, and they fucking dominated baseball.
Okay,
and not just because of Ruth, but also super because of Ruth.
Yeah.
But anyways, this guy who I can't remember the name of, he used to be part of Murderer's Row. He's on the Cubs, and basically they kind of fuck him out of money. Like he was integral. They probably should have paid him more.
Yeah.
The whole Yankee squad took offense that their guy who helped the Cubs win a World Series didn't get paid by the Cubs. Ruth made a big stink about it. He cursed, and he would curse like a sailor, but he was shit talking. He was a big shit talker, and he loved attention. So he was not shy. He was in the newspapers and interviews, just talking shit about the Cubs. So when that year, when the Yankees and the Cubs played in the World Series, and I think the Cubs had home field advantage, so they did most of this in Chicago. Ruth was like not assaulted. That's not the word, but he couldn't go out in public. People were spitting on him, throwing things at him. Like they were pissed, and he didn't give a fuck because he was Babe Ruth. And even when they played the games, like the dugout was screaming at him. There was a point before the game even started where he announced publicly and to the dugout, to their face, he says, "We're doing this in 4. We're sweeping you." Like he was a shit talker, and he got people riled the fuck up. So by the time he comes up to bat in the 5th for this called shot, he's already pissed off the entire city. The crowd's going crazy. The dugout's going crazy. Even the pitcher's pissed at him. And anyways, there comes a point where I think it was 2 strikes and 1 ball. And I think the crowd lost their mind because they thought that was strike 3. And like Babe Ruth does this thing like where he holds up 2 fingers. He's like, that was only 2 strikes. And then I think it's the next pitch that he hits out of the ballpark. But there's this point where he does this weird gesture. It's either towards the pitcher or towards center field. And the thing is, like, we don't really have video of this. Yeah. There's a bunch of different accounts from a bunch of different people. Sometimes Babe Ruth claimed he was calling a shot. Sometimes he claimed he didn't. But everyone there that day saw him do some sort of gesture with his hands. And it was in the direction of center field, which, the pitcher is between him and center field. And then on the very next pitch, the motherfucker hits it. And he hits a monster of a home run. They say it went 500 feet. It was the hardest a home run had ever been hit at that stadium. Yeah. And it was in the direct direction that he may or may not have gestured.
So, well, it sounds like he may have done something, but it may not have been gesturing that he's going to be hitting it out of the park.
That's exactly
okay. Right. So he did do something. Right. They just weren't sure what exactly.
And the thing is, Babe's gone back and forth on it, and his teammates have been back and forth on it. But like, I don't think he actually gestured. But I think the moment is so cool and so legendary that like, fuck it, he did. Yeah. And you know what? Like, if you were in the seats that day, if you were a Cubs fan and you're pissed and you're yelling and the Babe does something and it looks like he's gesturing. You're like, what the fuck is he doing? And then he immediately, right after that, hits it exactly where he was pointing. Then for all intents and purposes, he did call his shot to you right there. That's what you just experienced. And you're probably fuming about it. But it's also like, it's probably a weird mixture of fuming, but also just like, you're so impressed. Like, this motherfucker, especially because that happened at the tail end of his career. Like, he was slow and fat by then. Yeah. He was still raking, but he was not in his prime.
Yeah, he wasn't in his prime.
So anyways, that's that story.
See, that was a good story. I like that. Let's see. Next Fritz fact. Let's hope you have another story. No, just playing.
This episode's about to get real long.
This fact is something that you and I also talked about, and I told you that I had no clue about this. Ruth first gained fame as a pitcher.
Yes.
I never heard anything about him pitching in my, like, granted, I didn't hear a lot about Babe Ruth. A lot of my information from him was either through a movie or something or through other people telling me about it. But he gained...
I guess I'll add something to this, but go ahead.
Yeah, he first gained fame as a pitcher, although best remembered for swatting a prodigious 714 home runs and slugging a .690. Which remains a major league record. Ruth was one of baseball's most dominant left-handed. Yeah, that's right. Go left-handers. I'm left-handed. Pitchers in the 1910s. He won 89 games in 6 seasons with the Boston Red Sox, including 24 in 1917, and helped the team win 3 World Series titles.
Oh, he won 89 games across 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was about to say. Jesus Christ.
Ruth only pitched 5 games for the New York Yankees, and his position switched to outfielder after being sold by Boston before the 1920 season.
Okay. I'm not getting in. I'm not about to get into the what do they call it? The curse of the Babe on the Red Sox. That's a different conversation. I guess I've mentioned it. So here we go. Sorry, Haley, if you're listening, you already know this. Babe Ruth's fucking absolutely incredible out the gate. Red Sox trade him for just straight cash to the Yankees, their rivals. Wow. Red Sox don't win a World Series for 102 years.
And people are saying it's the curse because they did that?
That maybe not 102 years. An extremely long time. Yeah. And it's like, I think it's called the Curse of the Babe. Anyways, that's not important here. I guess I'll add two things here. Two of the main reasons that Babe Ruth is as legendary as he is because he was both an amazing pitcher and an even better batter. And that's called being a two-way player. And there has never been another two-way player on the level of Babe Ruth, which is to say at all, until very, very recently. There is a current player right now named Shohei Ohtani on the Angels. And he is, for the first time, like, he's a Japanese player. He came over here with the intent of being a two-way player, because over there he was a two-way player. An amazing one, by the way. He came over here, and because of injuries and a bunch of other things, he's never managed to do both at the same time. He's been an amazing hitter this whole time. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic. This year is the first year that he's doing both. And fuck, man, he's doing both, man. Oh, really? And he's doing it so good. Like, I have been meaning to catch one of his starts on TV. I'm not an Angels fan. I don't like the Angels. I have a lot of problems with the Angels organization. I could go on a 2-hour, like, angry rant about the Angels. I'm not going to do that here. Shohei's amazing, and like I need to catch a start because he's making fucking history right now. No one's seen this shit in 100 years. Not since the Babe, man. Never. So wow. So that's why that's one of the reasons why the Babe is so famous, is because he did things.
I guess that's almost exactly 100 years to the year.
Yeah, right? I think. Well, I mean, if you pick 1921, yeah, but
1921, yeah.
The last thing I'll say is he was so good in comparison to his competition. When I say he was
pitching.
Just in general, like mostly at hitting, which is what he ends up doing for most of his career. There is a stat here called WRC Plus, which is a really condensed stat that basically tells you how good a player is in relation to your average replacement player, right? 100 is a baseline. So 100 WRC Plus means that you are at absolute average replacement level.
Oh, okay.
Every point above that is 1% better. Every point below that is 1% worse than your average replacement player. Babe Ruth, you said 1923? Mm-hmm. In 1923, Babe Ruth had a WRC plus of 231, which translates to the fact that he was 231% better than your average player. That's fucking mind-boggling. Wow. Now, we'll cover some of my thoughts on that later. Go ahead with your first facts.
Ruth was not a unanimous choice for the Baseball Hall of Fame. A year after his retirement, Ruth was among the 5 initial inductees elected to the new National Baseball Hall of Fame under construction in Cooperstown, New York. But in spite of Ruth's amazing career statistics, 11 of the 226 voters left him off their ballots. And the Sultan of SWAT trailed Ty Cobb as the leading vote getter. Ruth's plaque in Cooperstown refers to him as baseball's greatest drawing card, and proving the point, the Hall of Fame last month opened a new exhibit on Ruth to coincide with the centennial of his first big league season. I don't know when this was written, so the saying last month, if that happened, I don't know if that's
the time. Yeah, I don't know. But the only thing I'll say about that is, like, so the thing about the Baseball Hall of Fame is the voters are writers and media people and sometimes baseball people. Babe Ruth was a lot of things, and one of them was a very abrasive person who pissed off a lot of people. Mm-hmm. I personally think, like, from what I know about him, is he's someone that I would have liked personally in real life because he was very real with you. And I think he was uncouth, but he made his uncouthness very articulate in the way he spoke. He cursed like a sailor, but man, could he give you an insult, man. Like one that wouldn't even make you mad. You'd be just like, fuck, that was viciously good.
You're like, man, you got me.
Yeah, you really did. But like, he pissed off a lot of people, so I could see why he wouldn't get voted immediately.
The last fact that I have, I just thought this was such an odd tidbit of information. Ruth believed for most of his life that he was a year older than he really was. For decades, he believed his birthday was February 7th, 1894. But when he applied for his passport and had to get a copy of his birth certificate, he found out his birthday was actually February 6th, 1895.
You know, sometimes people don't keep track of shit.
I know,
you know
right?
I mean? He probably got told something once because it was misspoken. He just carried it with that.
And he said, and even after he found out the true birthday, he never changed it.
I mean, it just is what it is at that
it's
point.
just a
Like,
year.
who cares?
You know what I mean?
Whatever. Okay, is that it for your Fritz fact?
So that's it for the Fritz fact. So if we get back to it, yeah. How do you think, compared to players of today, could Babe Ruth pass tryouts and do well on a Major League Baseball team? And would he be as famous as he is if he started today instead of when he started baseball back?
Okay, so I think the first thing I'll say is one of the reasons that Babe Ruth was so dominant compared to his contemporary was, first off, segregated leagues. You had Negro leagues and you had white leagues, and they never played each other. I never
thought about that. Yeah, you're right.
And because of that, Babe's not playing against the full pool of talent. Right. I mean, don't get me wrong, he still was amazing and would have been, almost just as amazing if with the full pool of talent. But like, there would have been other amazing greats right there with him from the Negro leagues, and we got amazing stats on them as well. So I think that's part of it. The competition was generally weaker simply because of the population. Yeah. Number two, though, is just your average player was not nearly as good as players today. And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot about fitness wasn't known or widely accepted. A lot of these dudes were doing this part-time. Like, being a baseball player did not pay unless you were a superstar in a rich team.
It's not like it is today where even the lowest person is getting multi-million-dollars.
Baseball players today have been like honing their bodies and minds for the sport probably since they were like 7.
Yeah.
And like they've been training and going into travel ball and then playing in high school and getting scouted and going to college and or the minor leagues, and like it's a whole thing. And nowadays they eat the top nutrition. We got analytics for everything. We got biometric analytics. We got, for pitchers, we got spin rate and all kinds of other bullshit. We got just machines and cameras measuring everything and giving like players like this untold amount of information.
Yeah. And I learned a little bit about that just from the movie you recommended, which was Moneyball. Moneyball is a good movie. If you haven't seen it and you're not sure that you want to watch a movie about baseball, well, it's not just about baseball.
No, it's just a great movie. You'll love it no matter what. It's just a
really good, well-made movie.
Yeah. So I think just the caliber of players between now and then, they're just on a completely different level. That being said, Babe Ruth was absolutely a natural. He did work hard. He played well. He had a great build, especially when he was younger. He was a big dude, a lot of power, and was still fast, very athletic. He's one of those dudes who's like naturally like here's another player, Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is one of the best players in baseball right now. He's got 2 rings, an MVP. He's a Dodger. He's also just notably great at any sport he tries. He's like a world masterclass bowler as well, and also a world masterclass ping pong player. Like some people just got that athletic gene. Babe Ruth definitely had that.
So those would be his advantages for coming in today and trying out and
if he has any edge, it's that. So if he comes in at his prime, he's fucked. He would never make it.
What do you mean?
He would never, like, let's say you got him from his prime, picked him up, brought him here now, he would never make it. And I'll explain why. Pitching nowadays is so much better than it was then. Like, pitchers now are all throwing 100 miles per hour.
So you're saying even with his natural ability, it's still
That's
not...
That's exactly what I'm saying. I just don't think he stands a chance. He's not going to be trained to see balls moving this fast or how to hit them.
Oh, I see.
Nowadays we have the shift, which is like basically defensive players exactly where the computers say they need to be based off the hitter they're facing. So anyone who has Babe Ruth's analytics is going to be placed exactly where Babe Ruth, hits the ball.
Yeah.
And so if Babe Ruth isn't like hitting his home runs, he's not going to be ready for the shift. He's going to be, flying out, grounding out, and, fielder's choicing pretty much all the time. Cause he's not used to that. That's not how baseball used to be. And that's if he can hit the ball, which is moving 1,000,000 miles per hour and fucking curving and sliding in ways he's never seen before.
Did they have that they never had those type of...
They had stuff. So I won't say he would be completely unequipped because like back then they had, much more knuckleballers and spitballers. So spitballers are literally people who spit and or put other shit on the ball and then make the ball do loopy ass shit.
Oh,
and that shit that was banned back in I think 30s, 40s, somewhere in there. Okay. After Ruth, I think either way, like.
So they don't do that today?
No, that's super not allowed.
Not even knuckleball?
Not that knuckleballing is not allowed. It's just difficult and unpredictable.
Okay.
So spitballs are unpredictable, hard to hit. Knuckleballs are very unpredictable and hard to hit. So he would have that advantage of being able to maybe make adjustments, but I think it's just such a drastic thing that I don't think he. Do
you think he would even pass tryouts if he went and tried out for? Let's say the Dodgers.
Another problem too is he's so old, right? So getting into baseball at his prime, which would have been his year 28 season, that's so old. Like, people aren't really like, who are you? Like, we got no data on you. Like, I guess, okay, you go to tryouts, you show you got this stuff.
Oh, no. What if he comes? No, he's recognizable as Babe Ruth.
Oh, people know he's Babe Ruth?
Yeah,
yeah. Okay. So, yes. Okay, so they let him through the door, because of course they're not going to not.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I think he gets his ass kicked. Because he's not ready.
Oh, yeah, you still think.
Now,
well, what if he had the training, though? What if he received the training you know what I mean?
So if you transported kid Babe Ruth to now and like raised him in the current environment, I think he becomes a very good player. I think he even probably becomes like all-star level player. Okay. I don't think he's guaranteed to become great though.
Like as he was because of the fact of the segregated leagues.
Yeah, just
and
like all the competition. Yeah. Like there are dudes that are fucking amazing now that like they're quote unquote stars in the baseball community, but outside of that, most people have never heard of these guys because baseball's not really as big as it used to be in a lot of ways. But that and just there's other dudes who are way better. Okay, Mike Trout. You've heard of Mike Trout. Mike Trout, he's another Angel. Again, I'm not going to get started on Angels. Undisputedly, Mike Trout is the absolute best player in baseball. He is so fucking good, it's unreal. And that's in today's competition. Let me pull up Mike Trout real quick. So Mike Trout has won, I think, 3 MVPs already. He's only like 29 years old. So yeah, he's been playing since 2011. He's been playing for 10 years. He is currently 29 years old. His best season, from the looks of it here, was in... It's looking like his absolute best season was in 2018. He's got a 188 WRC plus. That's better than any other year I've listed here. There's other factors besides WRC plus. I'm really simplifying things when I'm just looking at that one stat.
Yeah.
I could look at WAR, which would be simplifying things there too, but we're just using this for now. So 188 is the best WRC plus he's ever had. And he was absolutely amazing that year. My God, look at these stats. But 188 versus Babe Ruth's 233, that is a full 50% worse than Babe Ruth in comparison to his contemporaries.
Yeah.
Mike Trout is absolutely dominant, undisputedly the best guy in the world. He's been undisputedly the best player in the world for like 6 years now, 7 years maybe, and he will continue to be for at least 4 more until maybe he starts to decline. We'll see how he ages. And even as good as Mike Trout is, and they say he might be the best to ever have played, but because of the level of competition, he's not as much better than the competition than Babe Ruth was in his day.
And then earlier, so earlier then too, you were also saying how nobody else could be compared to as Ruth except for now. There was a player that you said came from Japan.
Oh, Shohei Ohtani. Yeah. Like when it comes to being a two-way player, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, but his stats or whatever, what'd you call it, the WRC thing for him?
It's, I guess I could pull him up. The WRC Plus is really only going to pertain to his offense.
Oh, okay.
Pitching and batting are two, they get treated completely different because the fact is most pitchers never bat and or are terrible at it, so no one cares.
Yeah.
Except for the ones when they get hits. I love it when pitchers hit. And I'm so sad it's going to be gone after this year, which I'm not going to get into right now. Anyways. What did you want? Do you want me to look up something about Shohei Ohtani?
Oh, no, I just thought, because you were saying how if anyone were ever able to really be compared to
right now, it's Shohei Ohtani.
It would be him.
But here's the thing, so he's doing it this year, and it's amazing. Mm-hmm. And that's why I want to catch a start, because I don't know how long this is going to last. Even Babe Ruth only did it for 8 years. He was a really good pitcher, too. Yeah. But eventually, it started to slide in the direction of batting was outweighing the pitching. And they just had to give it up.
So theorize, if Babe Ruth were, received the same training today and everything, do you think...
he could do both?
Yeah.
No.
You don't think he would be able to do both anymore?
I think the fact that Shohei is doing it is so incredible. Pitching is so much harder and crazier and more skilled and specialized now that, again, most pitchers can't hit at all because they spend all their time focusing on how to be a great pitcher. Like, you don't have time to do both. You can't,
you think
not
he
at a
would
competitive
still be
level.
the only one doing this?
Yes, I think so. I mean, it's hard to quantify Babe Ruth's natural talent, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it would go a long way. But, like, I'm going to guess on the conservative side of things, and I'm going to say if Babe Ruth came to our time period and got trained from the right age to become a major leaguer, I think conservatively I would bet that he would become an all-star level player. And I think he would be famous still because of his attitude. I think his attitude mixed with the fact that he is still very good, he would be a bit of an icon.
So he would be the big draw still.
I think he would be
a big draw.
I think so. Yeah. Yes. I think he would still be a huge draw, but I don't think he wouldn't become the legend that he was.
So recap, if it really was Babe Ruth and he did time travel in his prime here, he most likely would not be a great baseball player compared to
he'd probably be pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah. But still be a big draw.
Because
everyone knew it's
Babe Ruth. Here he is.
He would probably be mostly used as almost kind of like a mascot.
Right.
If you think about it. You know what I mean? I mean, imagine how many ticket sales would just be contributed to him.
Well, I mean, you could say that about almost any time traveler.
I guess so,
But yes, absolutely. You are correct.
But dude, go Dodgers.
And that is all we have for you tonight. We will continue to bring you up-to-date coverage as new imaginings develop. Please don't forget to leave an iTunes review, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Remember, you can follow us on YouTube and on Twitter at DCYImagine. And if you would like to contact us or tell us what you are imagining, you can email us at dudecouldyouimagine@gmail.com. This has been Fritz Frivolous, and from all of us here at Dude Could You Imagine, keep on imagining.
Yes. Don't change it.
I'm not. That's gonna be it. I was this whole time I was thinking I'm gonna end it with dude. Go Dodgers.
Fuck yes.